The Soviet Union. Even the name evokes images of a bygone era, a time of communist ideology, massive military might, and a constant race for dominance against the West. From 1922 to 1991, this giant spanned 11 time zones, encompassing a diverse tapestry of cultures and peoples. But like all empires before it, the Soviet Union was not invincible. Internal pressures, economic stagnation, and the relentless tide of history led to its downfall. In 1991, the seemingly impossible happened. The Soviet Union fractured, dissolving into 15 independent states. The world watched in astonishment. The Cold War, a decades-long standoff between the Soviet Union and the United States, finally ended. It was a victory for democracy, many proclaimed, a testament to the power of freedom and self-determination. But history, like the cosmos itself, is full of surprises. The Soviet Union might be gone, but its legacy is far from forgotten. From the streets of Prague to the rice paddies of Vietnam, the echoes of Soviet influence can still be felt. In the collective memory of the world, the Soviet Union remains a potent symbol, a reminder of a time when the world teetered on the brink of nuclear annihilation, a time that hopefully we will never see again. But what if the past is not as distant as we think? What if, in a twist of fate worthy of a science fiction novel, the Soviet Union were to return? The year is 2024. The world is a different place than it was even a decade ago. The global political landscape is fractured, with old alliances strained and new ones tentatively forming. The threat of climate change looms large, pushing nations to the brink of cooperation and conflict in equal measure. Technology continues its relentless march, reshaping society in ways we are only beginning to understand. Into this already volatile mix, imagine the unthinkable. The Soviet Union, against all odds, re-emerges. Not as a pale imitation of its former self, but as a resurgent superpower, eager to reclaim its place on the world stage. How could such a thing even be possible? The collapse of the Soviet Union was not some magical event, but the culmination of deep-seated internal problems and external pressures. Economic stagnation, political repression, and a growing sense of nationalism within its republics all contributed to its demise. To imagine its return, we must consider scenarios where these factors are not only reversed, but also lead to a resurgence of Soviet ideology and power. It seems impossible, improbable even, and yet in a world grappling with uncertainty and change, perhaps the impossible is not so far-fetched after all. The resurrection of a dead empire might seem like a plotline from a Tom Clancy thriller, but several scenarios could pave the way for the Soviet Union's improbable return. Imagine a world where nationalism surges in former Soviet republics, fueled by economic hardship and disillusionment with the promises of independence. This discontent, coupled with a yearning for the perceived stability and strength of the bygone Soviet era, could create fertile ground for a pro-Soviet movement to take root. This movement, strategically supported by influential actors within Russia, perhaps nostalgic hardliners or ambitious figures seeking to expand their sphere of influence, could gain momentum, ultimately culminating in a bloodless, or perhaps not so bloodless, reunification. The world might watch in disbelief as one by one former Soviet republics choose to rejoin the fold, their independence seemingly erased overnight. Of course, such a dramatic shift in the geopolitical landscape wouldn't happen in a vacuum. The international community, particularly the West, would be forced to react. Would they recognize this new Soviet Union, or would they denounce it as an illegal entity? This question, fraught with diplomatic landmines, would have far-reaching consequences. The reappearance of the Soviet Union on the world map wouldn't just be a political earthquake, it would send shockwaves through the very fault lines of global security. The most immediate flashpoint would likely be Eastern Europe, where the ghosts of the Cold War still linger. Countries like Poland, Lithuania and Estonia, once part of the Soviet sphere of influence, would find themselves on the front lines of a new era of tension. Their NATO membership, once a guarantee of security, would be put to the test. Would NATO risk a full-blown conflict with a resurgent nuclear-armed superpower over these nations? Or would they, in a move echoing the appeasement policies of the past, choose to appease the bear, potentially emboldening further expansionist ambitions? Beyond Eastern Europe, the ramifications of the Soviet Union's return would be felt globally. The Middle East, already a cauldron of competing interests, could see a resurgence of proxy wars, with the Soviet Union backing its old allies like Syria and Iran. The Arctic, increasingly important due to climate change and resource competition, could become another arena for great power rivalry.